Andy in the Attic with a follow-up to the video on alcohol issues. Thank you to everybody that left a comment and messaged me and emailed me. I was kind of taken aback. This has been the most popular video I've done, actually, for a long time. I didn't think it would. I thought it was just going to be a fairly ordinary one. So thank you to everyone that interacted with that and sent me messages. And there's a few points I thought I'd add, mostly based on some of the feedback I got and a couple of the questions that were messaged over to me on Reddit. And it's the issue of identity versus behavior. One of the problems of alcoholism is the whole paradigm by which it's seen. So a person is an alcoholic. They're not a person who drinks too much. And essentially, the alcoholic paradigm blames the individual. The person who drinks too much to excess is compromising their health and well-being is deemed to be an alcoholic. They have a problem with alcohol. We do the same thing with other drugs as well, is that we have a drug addict, the person who is addicted to drugs. And by labeling the person at the identity level with that particular behavior, a number of things happen. It effectively demarcates them as being a different type of person to the rest of us. Now, a person who takes heroin on a chronic level, so they're continually taking it, would be regarded as an addict. And essentially, anyone who takes heroin is usually viewed with some suspicion as having a drug problem. And so it is something very much inherent in those people. Sensible, normal, educated people will stay away from those addictive substances. And so it's very much an identity thing. The problem being, of course, that we know heroin has addictive properties within it. And so there's this notion that you have to have a faulted personality. They have the potential to be an addict, and then they meet a substance which has an inherent property of addictability, if that's even a word. And when those two things come together, we have a devastating consequence on those individuals and the people that they're associated with in their communities. When people are addicted to alcohol, we don't blame the alcohol, as I said in the previous video. We only blame them because they are an alcoholic. So now what we have is a scenario where there are plenty of people who very, very clearly would fulfill the criteria of heavy alcohol abuse and would be deemed to be an alcoholic. But they and their associates have never taken on the identity of being an alcoholic. There's the old joke that the alcoholic has to go to meetings, the drinker goes to parties. And it's very much the context that goes on around the behavior. An alcoholic going to a meeting where they stand up and say, hey, my name is and I'm an alcoholic, my last drink was 25 years ago, or whenever that was, is surrounded by people who are buying into the same paradigm. The guy who's opening a bottle of wine every night and going down the pub every night to find company and solace and all the other things that people do around alcohol, well, they're surrounding themselves by like-minded people. They're not problems. They are people having a good time, just relaxing, enjoying a drink. And so what this then does is it shapes a particular mindset within the community. There's a vested interest in each individual to not identify themselves as being one of them, the other. I'm just a person who drinks a lot. I enjoy a drink. I have a good time. I have lots of friends. I've never had a day off work. So what if I drink a bottle of wine every night? Yeah, well, and indeed, so what? Individual choice and so forth. The problem is, are those people operating independently? Are they free-thinking, free-choosing, sentient beings? Or have they been fooled by a marketing machine? The marketing machine that basically says the alcoholic has something wrong with them. You don't have something wrong with you. Look, and here are the positive images we can put in your mind to show you the party that you imagine you're having. I've certainly, in conversations with other drinkers back in the day that I was a drinker, the notion that having a bottle of wine on your own in the evening, you're doing something. It's something to do. Well, what are you doing apart from just drinking a bottle of wine? You're not actually doing anything. It's the illusion of doing something. Now, the moment the person is into that trapping, they've still got the narrative in their head. It's a party in their head. It's a party for one. But they're not actually doing any of the behaviors that is being marketed to them, apart from they're consuming, and they are a brilliant consumer, and they will be encouraged to continue to consume. The whole narrative around the alcoholic versus the alcohol having a problem is it labels the thing as being an identity issue. This is not a behavioral issue. This is not an issue that's inherent within the drug itself. This is an issue that is an identity. And the alcoholic is pre-made. They come ready-made prior to the alcohol. Groups like Alcoholics Anonymous, who I'm sure do really good work, help perpetuate this whole notion. What they're putting out there is, I'm an alcoholic. My last drink was 25 years ago, so I've still got the identity even though I don't have the behavior. And so now what we have is, to what degree does a person have to no longer be a drinker to be free from that identity? And within this paradigm, they're never free from it. They're always labeled as being something that's different to other people. Other people can handle the drink. They can take it or leave it. But I, as the alcoholic, am demarcated as having different qualities to that. Now, there may be some truth to that for many individuals. There may well be. We know that addiction, the biggest predictor of addiction, is child abuse. And the biggest predictor of homelessness and addiction, so the homeless addicts, again, is child abuse. And that's a very strong correlation that is demonstrated repeatedly. And in animal studies as well, this is demonstrated, as well as in cross-cultural studies of human behavior. The alcoholic is ready-made. The drink is there ready for them. And as long as we maintain that paradigm, we have a whole nation of drinkers. Just go down any city centre on a Saturday night or Friday night in the UK and just have a look at how people behave. Just have a look what happens in accident and emergency departments on those busy drinking nights. It's usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights. And have a look what's happening in the accident departments. Have a look at who's coming in first thing on the Sunday morning, once they've slept it off and they've woken up and they discover that something hurts really bad. Didn't hurt so much the night before. Usually an injury that they've woken up to, not realising how bad it was when they did it. It's a huge problem. Look on the hepatic liver unit. I was offered a job on the liver unit in one of the hospitals I worked in. And I was a little bit hesitant because I thought that's going to be grim. And mostly it was people with cirrhosis of the liver. On the day that I went up there, I was going to do 3 shifts just to see if I gelled with the unit, if they gelled with me. And there was a young lady there. She was probably 22, 23 years old, who was going to die that morning from liver failure. Now, she was a university student. All of her friends had come in, and it was awful. It was truly, truly awful because she was going to die, and she did, in fact, die that morning. And it was one of the grimmest environments I've ever been in. The staff across the board were absolutely fantastic. It was one of the most professional environments I've been in, but from a patient care point of view, it was really grim. Those are the pictures that no one is seeing. And yet that young lady and her friends were all enabling each other during their partying and their binge drinking and all the stuff that young people do. I did that myself. And they're all being enabled into that. They're being facilitated into that. Student parties, student nightclubs, student pubs, student discounts, continually pushing people into this paradigm. Now, meanwhile, say, look in the city centres, it's all being facilitated and enabled. People are being fooled into excessive consumption, and the damage it is doing to people is mind-blowing to me. And yet continually, the whole story is put out there. The problem is with alcoholics. The problem isn't with everybody else. I have people that I know who are devastating their health through their alcohol intake. And as far as they're concerned, they're just having a good time, even though they have actually been having treatment for problems that are caused by their excessive drinking, and accompanying with that is the excessive smoking. I certainly know in my day of drinking, I hardly ever smoked during the day, but put a pint in my hand, send me down the pub, 20 cigarettes a night would be perfectly normal for me to do that. And I know how common that is from other associates that I used to drink with too. And so we were all enabling each other to continue on this path of self-destruction. So that was all. That's all I wanted to say, really, is that we've got to change the paradigm from being an identity issue. A person is an alcoholic or they're not. It doesn't quite work that way.